The Nintendo 64 was the first console I owned that featured 3D graphics. It had a very small library of games, but many of the games are extremely fun and are still totally worth replaying today. The memory constraints on Nintendo 64 cartridges forced developers to create games that would focus solely on gameplay. Even if you play a game on the console today, you'll never have to wait for the game to load, and you'll never have to wait for long cutscenes. Every game on the console excels at having non-stop action the entire way through. The controller itself is what stands out, and it's one of the most batshit crazy things ever. It basically has like 3 places to hold your hand. So we have one hand dedicated to all the buttons on the right, and you got one hand dedicated to either the analog stick or the D-pad. You got the Z button with the analog stick, and you have the L button with the D-pad, so you pretty much have 2 buttons on your left hand at all times. The analog sticks were revolutionary at the time, but they weren't very durable. Most of the analog sticks on my controllers broke from overuse, and I completely blame Mario Party. When you invite your friends over to play, everyone will just bust the shit out of the analog stick in order to win the mini games, and even then you'll still lose the fucking game because someone landed on chance time and fucked everything up. Despite having broken analog sticks, I still ended up playing through the entirety of Ocarina of Time. The broken analog sticks made it so I couldn't run at full speed unless I pressed the control stick really hard. I apparently pressed my thumb against the control stick for such a long time that I actually developed a permanent callus on my thumb that I still have to this day. The D-pad is probably one of the most underused buttons on the controller, and it really didn't need to exist. Out of all the games I played on the Nintendo 64, Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards was the only one to ever require the use of the D-pad, and even then, they could have just used the analog stick. Nintendo eventually released an expansion pack that added 4 megabits of RAM. It helped up the resolution of some games and was required to play like a couple of them. The expansion pack was pretty expensive, but it came with a free copy of Donkey Kong 64. So once you put the expansion pack in the Nintendo 64 and threw out the excess packaging material, you could finally start playing some actual good games instead. Now I got a Nintendo 64 really late into the generation. I got the gold Nintendo 64 at Toys R Us, and there's all these amazing games that already have been released. Just a bunch of fucking masterpieces. Super Mario 64, Ocarina of Time, Super Smash Bros, Mario Kart, all this hype ass shit. What was the first game I got? What'd I get? Mickey's Speedway USA. Man, it's fine though, okay? Donald Duck is going nuts in Colorado, Goofy's tearing up Las Vegas. It's basically Mario Kart with Mickey Mouse characters. Apparently Pluto has been kidnapped and Mickey and his buddies have to rescue him by racing! Or some shit. So I got a brand new Nintendo 64 with Mickey's Speedway USA. It's fun enough for what it's worth, but now I'm getting bored of it. But it's fine, because I can just go down to the local video store and rent a new video game for the weekend. Remember, you could just walk into a store and rent a game? You could just try shit out. It didn't even matter if it was garbage. Hot Wheels Turbo Racing? Fuck it. I like Hot Wheels. $5 for 2 days. So I'm at the video store as a kid, and I'm looking at the shelf of all of these classic games, and I finally decide to rent Super Smash Bros. I didn't know what it was. It's got Pikachu on it. Fuck it. Who cares? Mom, I want the fucking Pikachu game. And god damn it, I fell down the rabbit hole. This game introduced me to all the Nintendo characters I never really knew about. I played Pokémon and a little bit of Mario Kart, but everything else was pretty much unknown. Fox, Link, Samus, Kirby, Captain Falcon, all this hype ass shit. So now every time I went to the store to go rent a game, I noticed all the games these characters were originally from. I remember trying out Diddy Kong Racing because I knew Donkey Kong from Smash Bros and Mario Kart, so then I played Donkey Kong 64, which then had Diddy Kong, so then I knew who Diddy Kong was and rented the game, okay? The Nintendo rabbit hole is fucking deep, like shit is super fucked. I started off renting and buying Super Mario 64. It was the hypest shit ever. Mario is fucking cool. Let's just keep trying out Mario games. Mario Party? Mario's having a party or some shit. I don't know. Who cares? It's Mario. It's gotta be good. Paper Mario? I don't know why Mario's fucking paper now, but who fucking cares? Fuck it. Then I remember trying out Yoshi's Story, which is like the gayest shit ever. Every time the storybook opens, I could feel every ounce of testosterone leave my body. It's not even that good, but I rented it for like $5. So fuck it. I'll suck a dick. Who cares? Now there's still all these other Nintendo games as well. Games like Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards. It was the hype as shit. You can combine abilities and get all this crazy shit like Darth Maul lightsaber shit's fucking nuts. I also ended up playing Star Fox 64, which is still the best Star Fox game of all time. Back when Nintendo could actually make good games without fucking them up. I mean, God forbid they just make Star Fox 64 again with some new levels with a normal fucking controller. I won't be surprised when the next Star Fox game requires you to strap a Wiimote to your dick in order to control the R-Wing or some stupid shit. I ended up renting and buying Ocarina of Time as well. It's a fucking masterpiece. It's Ocarina of Time. What else can I say at this point? The Nintendo 64 also had its fair share of Pokémon games as well. Being a fan of the series, I eventually played most of the ones that came out. Pokémon Stadium was the hypest shit at the time. Pokemon battles in 3D, that's all anyone wants. There really isn't much to it, but who cares? Pokemon was the hypest shit back then. Pokemon Snap was one of the more obscure games. The whole game basically involved taking pictures of Pokemon, and it was awesome! The pure spectacle of just seeing Pokemon moving in 3D was all anyone wanted. That shit was fucking crazy back then. Fucking classic! Genius! They'll never make a sequel to this game ever again. It's the easiest concept for the Wii U. Just use the gamepad as the camera, guys. It's so fucking easy. No? You're gonna strap Wiimotes to your dicks and give the shittiest Star Fox character their own game? Okay, fuck me. Hey You Pikachu is one of the even more obscure games. The whole game involved talking to Pikachu through a microphone that you attach to the 64 controller. It might be a stupid game, but I didn't care. I looked at the box and it had Pikachu on it. So I'm like, Mom, I want the fucking Pikachu game. So now I'm just like screaming into the microphone like, Pikachu, your poopy head, your dummy face Pikachu. It's right there. Hit the fucking piñata. Idiot, you fucking idiot. So sick. I got this library of awesome shit now, but I can still rent random stuff. Why not? $5 rentals! And that's when I finally discovered some of the best games on the Nintendo 64. Beetle Adventure Racing, baby! Oh my god! You're driving Beetle cars and you're racing and it's a fucking adventure. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1! Classic! Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2! Oh my god, classic! Classic again! Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3! Classic! Genius! Haven't played it! Banjo-Kazooie! Oh my god! It's like Donkey Kong 64 but not complete shit. Banjo-Tooie! Oh my god, classic! They did it again! But we need to realize that this is some revisionist history. For every great game on the Nintendo 64, there was a giant pile of games that were complete pieces of shit. But that didn't even matter. All you needed was 4 controllers and a good multiplayer game. You were fucking set. That's all you needed for an entire night's worth of chaos. But listen, there was one game I was saving for the very end. This game is a fucking masterpiece. Its core gameplay is so unique that no one has ever been able to recreate it since. Its story is delivered with such perfect execution that it still baffles me to this day. Every element in this game is so perfectly intertwined that I can only describe it as the greatest game of all time. Glover, baby! Oh my god!